Hello, welcome back, everybody.
What's up?
Yep, to the BFF podcast, the Best Foot Forward podcast. I'm Ann Duskus of Studio Duskus, and here with me is my
All the bloopers.
Literally. All right, how about you start?
Okay,
because I
start.
clearly cannot talk today.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Best Foot Forward podcast. It's me, Vic from Vic, and I have here with me...
I'm Ann Duskus of Studio Duskus.
Yes! We're having some trouble starting today.
Yo, literally do not know how to
yeah.
podcast right now.
Yeah.
And we just did this yesterday.
I know.
What the heck?
Just some days feel better than others, and I think that's okay. We're keeping it real in the studio.
We are keeping it real.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're keeping it real, let me just say, on record, like... I'm struggling a little bit.
Struggling how?
Just like, I'm starting to feel the pressure of this podcast.
Right?
Okay? Like,
Yes.
we literally, before we started this episode, we had a conversation about, like, where this is going, what's happening with season 2, what's going to happen with season 3. And again, this is totally candid off the camera that we're now just bringing on camera right now because it's actually, like, really, like, top of mind right now.
Yeah. I like that you're bringing this up because that's what the point of this podcast is, right? To
Yes.
share what we're going through and the day-to-day of all of this.
And it's real. It's like a ever-changing, constant challenge of trying to figure out what to do next.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with our topic today.
Yeah.
But just wanted to
putting it out
say
there.
that out loud because maybe somebody else shares the same struggle that some days just is not working.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I think as a creative, this is common in every project. Like not just podcasting. It's like in my own work. Sometimes I feel this way, where it's like I don't know what I'm doing. You know?
Oh yeah. Okay, but what do we want to talk about today, though? What is the topic?
Okay, so I know you're a hustler. You know, like we have this personality type that's really frustrating. We cannot sit still. It's like
we cannot. And
right?
I'm actually very proud of that.
Yeah. And Ann doesn't even watch TV. So what do you do in your free time, even when you were working, you know? I want to hear about how this came to be. And I don't think this is like an overnighter thing where all of a sudden you just decided, I want to start my own thing. I feel like you've always had this, let's call it the entrepreneurial spirit inside. And like, I want to hear about your side hustles, if you have.
Okay, literally before we decided that this was going to be the topic for today, you asked me if I can talk about side hustling.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I mean, I guess I can, but like, what about you?
Yeah.
And then you started like spitballing like all the things that you've done in the past that I knew nothing about.
Really?
First of all, I'm like, wait a minute. Like, where is this coming from? How come I knew nothing about this? Yes, we need to talk about this today.
Perfect.
Because I think one of the questions that we get often from our people is, like, how did you get to where you are today?
Mm-hmm.
And I think what a lot of people don't know about is all the things that we failed at doing to get to where we are today. And not that we're hugely successful because we're still trying to make it per se.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's important to share like what we've done in the past that didn't really quite work out.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of things.
So many
didn't work out.
things.
Yeah, but I feel like every time something fails, as long as you're somebody who learns a lesson from it, pick yourself up, you can start again. There's no shame in failing. And I think a lot of really successful people in life have failed at least once, if not
multiple
many times. Yeah.
Wait, okay, let me ask you this real quick though before we get into it. Are there people around you that are more scared of you failing again than you failing again yourself?
Good question. I feel like I've been sheltered. Like, I almost feel like nobody really had the confidence that I could do something. So every single time they'd entertain me and be like, oh, they'd humor me and be like, yeah, like, good job, keep doing what you're doing. But nobody like truly believed in me. So I don't know if they're like scared of failure or what it is, but
they don't outright say it to you. It's like, oh, were you going to try that this time? Like, remember what happened last time? Do you have anybody in your life that kind of does that?
The worst thing that I hear is like, oh yeah, Vicky and her like get rich quick schemes, and like you're just trying to make money, like all the ways that you could possibly just earn an extra buck. Like,
and what is wrong with that?
There is nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that.
And what frustrates me is like I feel like these people that are really close to me fail to see like the true intentions of why I'm doing that. You know, even as a kid, like I would try to do, for example, like I would try to make jewelry so many times. Like I love working with my hands. So I would, when I was really little, I would like make friendship bracelets, and I would sit outside my door with like a little table that my dad set up for me, and I would try to sell them. And then, like, you know, sometimes we would move to the local park, and I would sit at the park trying to sell my bracelets made out of, like, either it's, like, you know, friendship bracelets out of embroidery thread
Mm-hmm.
or with, like, beads and stuff and, you know, all of that. And I guess when you're younger, it's sort of passed off as, like, oh, it's just a hobby. Like, she just wants to do that. But I think they've overlooked the fact that it's not entirely about me making the thing. It's me trying to understand, like, oh, how do I price these things? How, like, will this actually sell? And that was the thing that fascinated me.
And how old were you then?
Oh, like, probably as early as, like, 4 or 5, I want to say.
And when you were doing this, did you ever ask for help? And did you ever ask for, like, your parents' opinion on, like, oh, Mom, like, how much do you think I should sell this for? Or is it more of, like, this is a lemonade stand, 5 cents sort of thing?
I think I was pretty I was pretty independent in my pricing and whether it sold or not. I mean, sometimes they'd be like, you made like $15? Oh, good for you, you know? Like, yeah. I was surprised. I didn't expect you to make anything, you know? And when you're a kid, that's okay because they don't care what you do as long as you come home safe. Whereas when you're an adult, I think the story changes a little bit because it's like, what are you doing with your life? What do you mean you're starting a business and you're not making money immediately? You know, then money kind of becomes a bigger factor.
Okay, I kind of like, I've been thinking about, like, about this, and I want to dig into it a little bit. So, you have talked about in previous episodes where your parents, you know, like, your dad working multiple jobs, you know, even to this day, and even, like, you know, while you're growing up, and, you know, again, like, them working at, like blue-collar jobs, and again, even to this day, and they've always worked for somebody else, right? So where does this, like, entrepreneurial spirit came from for you? Because it sounds like to me you've always had this inside of you, but then your immediate family, like your parents, weren't exactly that. So, like, where did you get that from?
Honestly, I don't even know. Like, I don't have a family member that does the same thing, which is why I always, like, felt a little bit alone because I had nobody to talk to about it. And you're right, like, my dad in one of his 2 jobs, he's a chef, and he has tried to propose the idea of opening a restaurant, but my mom always shot him down and said, like, you know, with the restaurant business, you kind of have to be there a lot. You spend a lot of time sitting around, like, guarding your business, and she didn't want that kind of life. So she turned him down and said, like, no, I don't want to do it. And on other occasions, my dad would be like, oh, I have this, like, cool business idea, but then never really go through with it. So I feel like for me, I always had that determination that I at least wanted to try. And if it failed, it's okay. It's not a big deal, you know?
So would you say that even though your parents didn't go through with sort of, like, going out on their own, doing their own thing ideas, would you say that they've still encouraged you, that it's okay to do so, or have you ever felt discouraged?
Oh, all the time, especially for being a girl. So one of my other side hustles was, like, I wanted to import accessories, jewelry, like ties and things like that. And I was working with a friend who he is Chinese, so we had like a good connection, and we were going to get some stuff from China and maybe sell it here. And when I proposed that, like, I wanted to go and tour the facilities, basically my parents are like, don't be stupid. They shot that down immediately because they were like, you're a girl, you're going to go over there, you're going to get kidnapped, you're going to get, like, people are going to take advantage of you, you don't know what's going to, like, what you're going to end up doing there, and there's no safety, you can't go. So it was, like, immediately a no. So anything that was risky or, like, you know, anything that didn't have a guaranteed income or, like, the risk was too big was highly discouraged.
And how old were you then?
Oh, definitely in my, like, 20s. I was old enough to make my own decision, and, I mean, but still, going overseas and doing it by myself was a scary thought, so I didn't pursue that.
That is really interesting because I'm trying to figure out where this, like, resilience, like where do you get it from?
Yeah.
Because especially, you know, like, again, you know, in one of our previous episodes, we talked about, you know, how growing up as Asian girls, and even just like as a child, you know, all we ever want is to seek approval from our parents and our loved ones. And it sounds like you've been disapproved so many times in the past in your pursuit of your own happiness.
Yeah.
But then you never backed out. Like, how did you find that, like, strength, right? Because especially from your parents, I think, like, I personally have been scarred from, like, you know, not being supported by my parents in my endeavors. But actually, in saying this out loud right now, I think I get a sense of why and confirm yes or no.
Okay.
I think, and then part of why I became really resilient is because I sort of use their disapproval as a fuel for my fire of wanting to prove them wrong. Like, let me show you that this is actually doable.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's definitely that. And I'm curious that you're saying it because your parents have their own business. They are entrepreneurs. So what was the reasoning behind why they didn't encourage you to do the same?
I think is because, I mean, I wouldn't say they, like, right out, like, discouraged me from doing the things I wanted to try. But again, going back to what you were saying earlier, it's always one of those things where it feels like, oh, Anna's just in one of her phases, you know, like, she's just going to try it out and realize, like, it's not going to work out, and she's on to the next thing.
Yeah.
You know, and admittedly, I think, like, growing up, I've always had that pattern, you know, for better or for worse, you know, as a creative person. I have very short attention span to doing just one thing.
I can understand that.
And I think oftentimes it's bite me in the butt because I didn't really have a plan, you know, and I just wanted to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then, so in hindsight, it's like, yeah, like, that was so dumb, you know, but then, like, I would not have known that had I not tried.
Yeah. And again, I think you learn so many things that even you don't realize when you're younger. Maybe it's a failed endeavor. Maybe it's something that wasn't really thought out. But unless you went through it, you don't actually know. You can always say what if. You can always assume what's going to happen, hypothesize, and then, you know, try to walk through it all. But then when you don't have all the life factors in place, it's not real, you know. So the fact that you did it led you to what you're doing today, and you might do something differently in a couple of years, you know.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so I want to know more about what else you've done.
You're, like,
okay, like,
digging
what
through.
else? Okay,
Yeah.
So you talked about how, like, when you were little, you sold friendship bracelets, and you made them. And then in your 20s, like early 20, like you wanted to start your like importing business. Is there a gap between like your teenage years, between like friendship bracelets and like importing business?
I think I always talked about it. I always dreamt about it. Like, I wanted to open like a restaurant. And then when I was like really interested in coffee, I wanted to have like a cafe, you know, and I would, wherever I worked, like I worked part-time since I was like of legal age to work. I had always had a job and like so many different jobs. So while I was there, I think I always like looked at how businesses were managed and tried to think of like ways that it would be feasible. And I would get these ideas, and I guess back then I would keep pitching them to people, like my friends, my family. I'd be like, what if we did this? Like, what if there was an app that did this? And people showed very little interest, especially in Toronto. I think everybody's just, you know, they know exactly what path they're going down. They're going to school, and then they know, like, I'm going to go and be an accountant, and I'm going to go to school for it. And then when I graduate, I'm going to be an accountant. I didn't meet that many people that had ideas of things that weren't currently available and then wanted to make that happen.
So this wasn't just like within your family, this was like within your friends group as well.
Yeah. And what else did I do? I think, so I actually ran like a charity club at my university. So I was like president of the Heart and Stroke Club. And when we did that, we always had to do fundraisers. And so, you know, I think this is a thing that I learned pretty early on. So I would contacted an ice cream company. And it's so weird. Looking back, ice cream and heart disease prevention doesn't really go hand in hand. But we had it didn't make sense.
But it doesn't matter.
Right. But we had a company that would donate a whole bunch of ice cream to us on a really hot day, and we sold it, and then the donations were used to like go back to the charity and stuff like that. So we always had, you know, events. And then, you know, the bracelet thing popped up again, where it was like, oh, I taught a whole bunch of high school students how to make like a particular bracelet, and we worked on packaging, we worked on like how to sell it, how to price it, and then they sold a whole bunch, and through the school we're able to donate to the charity too.
Amazing.
So it's like I really enjoy doing these kinds of things, and I don't think that was like a career option for me, but I was always drawn to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? I want to hear
so
about
cool.
all your different side hustles. I almost don't. Okay. Tell me if they are considered to you like side hustles. And are they side hustles because we needed more money, or are they side hustles because we weren't ready to go all out?
I think all of that. So when the first business I tried to start, it was during the time that I dropped out of college. And it was during the time when actually in our previous episode that we've released, we had talked about mental health, and in the episode I had talked about how I suffer from clinical depression for 5 years. And so if you haven't had a chance to listen to it, there's definitely, I share more details in that episode, but it was during that period when I tried to start my first business, which was like the most insane time to even try to start a business, because I was not in a mental space to even attempt to do that. But again, it's like one of those things where I thought, okay, it was something to do to keep my mind off of like being depressed, I guess. And so like I dropped out of college, you know, and I had this like demon with my family, and then I just like did not give a crap about like money and life, and I just wanted to like make other people's life miserable, if that makes sense. By taking money from my dad, you know. It was just like insane. It was just like a crazy time.
Yeah.
And so I started like I designed these like deconstructed like women's tops, and each top can be worn like several different ways, so it's like a customizable top.
That's so cool.
And then and it's so funny because I remember one of the posts that I've done on my Instagram, I have openly said how back in like the 90s and the early 2000s, the word couture is so ill-used. And I definitely contributed to that because the brand that I had at the time was Ann Chan Couture, thank you. And hilarious, I know. But then like I hired like a web designer, and like this is where like I'm like totally dating myself, because back then when I was trying to start a brand, like Flash was like a big thing, you know, so all the website is like super like flashed out, you know, and you have to have all these like crazy like, you know, animation. It was just anyways. And then so I worked with like a web designer, you know, I like worked on my own packaging and like the whole thing. And then had a like web store, and then I was trying to get it into like local boutiques and da-da-da. And but again, like at the time, like I had no idea what I was doing because one, I didn't finish my college degree, and two, I didn't have any job experience, so I didn't really understand like how to build my inventory, how to properly drop ship, how to set up my bank account, how to like all of those things, which is like like I just focus on the product, and so that like quickly went to poop.
Yeah.
And
Ann Chan Couture. Don't worry. When you get famous, it's coming back.
No, but then it's fine because then, you know, so then I ended up like sitting on like all these inventory that did not sell for a long time, you know, and
Wait, did you do like a big order of it?
Yeah.
Oh my God, how big?
I had I think I had close to like 800 units or something.
Oh wow.
Like total.
Where did
of,
you
like,
store
all the
that?
different- In my garage. For like years and years.
Yeah. Wait, do you still have any more?
No, I
Vintage
ended up
Ann Chan?
donating
Oh
all of
man.
it. Yeah.
Oh man.
So no, it's better this way. Trust me. But yeah, so then that was like, and then so I did that like while I was depressed, and didn't go very far, obviously because of that. And then after that, I figured out my depression thing. You guys can, you know, listen to how I figured that out in the other episode. But I figured that out. I was fine. And then I went back and got my degree, and then went to work for corporate companies. And then it was at my second, I started working on it in my first corporate gig as a side hustle. So I started another apparel brand. And meanwhile, you're probably like, Ann, why did you do like all apparel brand? Because that was what I studied in college. I have a fashion design degree. It was only like 7 years ago that I started doing footwear design. So that's why like a lot of my earlier career stuff are all apparel related. Yeah. And so it was in my first corporate gig that I started working on a side hustle, and this is for an outerwear company. And it was called Swellas. And it was
Swellas, like SWELLAS.
Okay. As well as, but with the A, like
that's cute.
no
That's
A in the
so
front.
Cute. Okay, I like that.
And so like I really wanted to do like a mission-based fashion business that was like very similar to like Tom's model, like back then, where when you buy a unit, like I would donate a unit to somebody in need. And so so my like mission was like every jacket I sell, I would donate a jacket. And then so I started that hustle when I was at my first corporate gig, and then once I got to my second corporate gig, like I continued that, and then I launched that side hustle while I was at my second corporate gig. And then again, it's a side hustle because it was just something I wanted to do for fun. Yeah. And I know immediately up front it wasn't going to make me enough money. And so I only worked on it like after work, you know, because I needed the financial stability of a full-time job for me to even pursue something else.
Yeah.
And so that's why it was a side hustle. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel the same way, where we're always doing something else, whether we were in school, whether we were working. Like, pursuing our own career is always just an afterthought. It's like something we can do in our free time, you know, because that, again, that courage to like really go into it and give it your all, I don't think it came until we were forced into it, right? Like you were saying, both of us sort of went all out around when COVID hit and when we were in quarantine, because that we had so much free time, nowhere to go, and it's like, well, what do you do with it now? Yeah, but I think it's so funny when you said like the Tom's model, where it's like you buy one and then I'll give somebody else one, which reminds me of like when I was coming up with my quote unquote business model back in the day, which was like the bracelets that I made, I had put some kind of, I guess you can call this a gimmick looking back, but it was like, it was a bracelet made with like semi-precious stones, and the bracelet itself was not meant to stay on very long, so you tie a knot, and it's basically for you to form like some kind of habit. So you like set an intention for yourself, and when the bracelet falls off, like the bracelet is there to remind you to continuously keep up your word on this, you know, whatever it is, goal that you set. And then when the bracelet falls off, then, you know, you've done that so often, the habit now becomes like part of your daily routine. And it's like,
oh, I love that.
A little bit, I know, but like it's a little bit kind of gimmicky, you know, like that was what I was using. That was what my intentions were for the product. And I think it was, there is actually a bracelet brand that does it. I still see it to this day in stores where they have, you know, a little card and then there's a bracelet on it, whether it's like friendship bracelet or it has like beads on it, and then it says something, you know, like whether this is like representing your love life or your friendship or whatever. And I'm like, see, I was trying to do that, you know, but like other people have successfully done it and like kind of made it even bigger, you know?
Yeah.
And I almost feel like, was it because we didn't keep up with it, or like how did you take the failure? I don't want to call it a failure, but like your business not working out, or you giving up on that idea?
Yeah. Swallows was probably the hardest one for me because I really loved what it was about. And I will put on record today because I'm really proud. Like, we did end up donating 200 jackets to through Operation Warm.
Yeah.
And we did like a jacket drop on Oakland, and so I got to like meet the kids and their families, and it was like amazing.
That's incredible.
And I think, again, like that one was really hard for me because, you know, I got to like kind of see it from the beginning all the way to the end where I actually got to do a donation drop. And it was like a full circle moment. You know, it's like, okay, this is why I wanted to do it to begin with. And I think it was, and I can make all the excuses today of why it didn't work out, you know, when at the end of the day, I was just lazy. Honestly, like if I have to put like a reason behind why I didn't go forward with it, is because I just got burned out, you know, like working a full-time job and then working on my side hustle. But then it also is like somebody can just like listen to what I'm saying right now and just basically say in my face that I just didn't want it bad enough, which like it wouldn't be a far reach, you know? Because I think like the me then versus the me now is also a very different person, you know? And I think my desire of wanting to push harder now is so much greater than the me then. And so, but then again, like I really truly believe that like I was right where I was supposed to be, and everything was supposed to happen in that moment in time for me to be in the position that I am today. So like I'm not upset by it. It was just like, sometimes I think about it, it was, you know, I would just wonder like what else could I have done with it.
If Swallows was like the next big brand, then we wouldn't be here, you know, maybe you wouldn't have found sneakers.
I wouldn't, honestly.
Yeah, totally. And you know, I think it's like, it's a couple of things. Like, you don't want it bad enough. And when you're doing things, I just felt it was always a side hustle because you always just gave it your extra time. And I believe in my window of productivity in a day, which is roughly between, like, let's say 10 to 12 hours, maybe even less, maybe like 8 hours, where you are actually conscious about the decisions that you're making, the things that you're doing. You can like really think about and like be very insightful about what you're doing. And afterwards, you're just on autopilot. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the time we were allowing ourselves to kind of entertain this idea of owning a business, is when we were on autopilot. It's like, let me do the bare minimum to create a business, and then let's see where it goes. And something's going to show up. Some kind of sign is going to show you that you should continue doing it. Like, for example, you're going to make a ton of money, which never really happens. So then you're never like motivated to continue, and you just let it kind of drop off, you know? So for me, it was like C'est la Vic was always something that persisted through all of that. You know, C'est la Vic started out on Etsy as like a side hustle. It totally was to just earn extra income. It was not insightful. I did not think, I always would sit there, you know, planning a website or trying to plan marketing, like how do I get my name out there? But it always like, there was always a little hesitation to go any further. And it wasn't until I was fully committed to the process that I feel like I can spend all of my time. And even now that we're doing it full time, we still sit here and we're like, we don't have enough hours in the day to do everything we want for the business. So it's like you finally understand that running your own business takes full attention.
It takes full attention. Also, like, I want to say it out loud because I think a lot of our people also come to us with this question of, like, how did you turn this into a full-time job? Or how did you get a studio? Like, what led to that? Mm-hmm. And everything that we just talked about led to this.
Yes.
But make no mistake, you know, the pressure of running our own business is full-time, is like 10 times higher than it was when it was just our side hustle. Mm-hmm. Because when it was just our side hustle, we had the comfort of a stable income. Mm-hmm. But doing it full-time now,
it's scarier than ever.
The pressure is high.
Yeah.
High. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I'm curious, how did you feel when you yourself knew that you were going to do this full-time, all in? Some days I still don't think I'm going to be doing this full-time, all in. Some days, literally, like, I'm like, oh, maybe I should, like, apply for a job.
There's always
because I really did not plan for this. Mm-hmm. If I'm being really honest with myself and with you and with our audience, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, like, I'm going to quit my full-time job, I'm going to start my own thing. Mm-hmm. It literally happened by accident because of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And I've always been one of those people where, like, I feel comfortable adapting to what is happening in my life. Mm-hmm. And so it was just kind of pointing me towards the direction of, like, oh, okay, well, maybe now is the time to try. Mm-hmm. You know, and I wasn't resistant to it. In fact, I had to, like, convince my loved ones to like, allow me this opportunity to try it.
Yeah. What did you say to them?
To one person, actually.
Okay.
To my husband, right?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like, I think, Vicky, you know me by now, where, like, I've always, like, been that person where, like, I just do whatever the hell I want.
You don't ask for permission.
I don't, which is, like, terrible because, like, at least the other person, at least my teammate, to think that, well, I'm not part of your team, you know, that to me there is an I in team, you know? Mm-hmm. And so So it's not always the best scenario because I'm so just kind of like wild and just like wanting to do my own thing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I think my loved ones have always been supportive because they have no choice but to be supportive of me. Because again, I'm also one of those people where like the more you tell me not to do something, the more I'm gonna do it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I think it wasn't something that I was asking permission for. It was sort of like an announcement of this is what I'm doing.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can get on board, or like, you know, or we can like, I don't know, but yeah, it's not always the best case, like best way to present my case, because yeah, it doesn't always make the other person feel good about it. But I'm working on that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, I think it's more like, not that you don't want to tell them, but you have this idea and you have this direction that's pulling you, and you yourself don't really know where it's going to go either, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you're still figuring things out, so it's hard to put in words. And we share we don't share partners. Oh my God. We have partners who share, similar traits, which is like, they're very practical when it comes to things. Like, they want to know the stats. They want to know how much time and all of these things. And I don't think either of us we don't think too hard about it. And it's really hard to know when you're starting out a business that not a lot of people do, you know? Like, how are we going to measure what our ROI is, you know, when we haven't even started yet? And that was the kind of thing that they wanted to see. So.
Wait, what about you? Same question.
I think I'm like the opposite of you, where I'm so uncertain about things. I question everything. I overthink everything. So, I mean, I ran away from home. I am in America, even though the rest of my family is in Canada. So I like distanced myself from expectations and all of that. And I have, you know, my partner who we share a life with. And I think he was aware that I always wanted to do this. I like dreamed about it. I would spend time like sitting at home just planning things out, like, look, here's what I think I could do with this business. And I would just do so much research, look in the market, and go on and on and on and on about it. So I'm pretty sure he was aware that this idea was like nagging at me and I needed to do it. And then when it came time to like fully do it, of course, we were in quarantine, nothing better to do, might as well do that. And I think I started seeing signs. So we went into it kind of gradually, like, let's give this a chance, like probation period, you know, couple of months. And then I started seeing signs like, oh, there's an increase in interest from people. Wait, people actually like this kind of stuff. More people are doing it. Look at all the people that are doing sneakers. You know, sneakers is not suddenly, but like a much bigger thing than it was before. And I feel like all the things in the universe kind of came together to give me signs to keep going. Mm-hmm. And that was when I was like, no, I have to test this out. I have to see this through to the end. Even if it's an epic fail and I lost 5 years of my life that I could have been making steady income, I don't care. Like, I don't want to regret all these ideas that I have that keep me awake at night and not being able to do it.
Yeah.
And so often people around me will throw out ideas and they never do it. And that's something that bothered me to the core, that I had to do this. Because I'm like, I want to show you that if you just persist and if you just trust your gut and don't give up, that it is possible. Mm-hmm. You know, like some people are like, oh, it would be such a great, like I would make so much money if I did this. Well, do it then.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Talk is cheap.
Yeah.
But if you actually take action, like how many people, there are so many success stories that are like really simple. You know, people are like, oh, I just wanted to do this. And they put a lot of time into it, a lot of years, a lot of ups and downs and failures. But then in the end, they come out doing something that they love.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's the reason why.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So the moral of this episode is don't talk about it, be about it.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Let's make a sign.
Yeah.
Merch.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
I like to learn about all your little side hustles that brought you where you are today.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm not quite done, but we can save that for next time.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in today. We really appreciate you. If you have any comments, please let us know, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Right on time.
Okay.
Did it.
Yeah, I think it feels good.
Okay.
I'm just like, well, I can talk. But it's fine. What else is new?